Scramble Knights Royale is the name of the upcoming ambitious indie-developed Battle Royale project that's going for a Zelda-like aesthetic and feel to its combat. This is a game that definitely captivated my interest, and I found myself participating in their recent playtest in order to get a further opinion on the game. I have thoughts and opinions to share, so let's get to that. Is Scramble Knights Royale going to be the next big Battle Royale game? That's the question we're here to answer, so thank you so much for your time. I'm glad the video piqued your interest. We have a lot to discuss, so let's just hop right into it. Let's first discuss the pros and the cons of Scramble Knights during that time with the playtest that I experienced, and then we can make a light prediction on how potentially successful this game can actually be. The Battle Royale genre has seen a lot of different games try to basically copy the success of Fortnite, and most have been unsuccessful at doing so. So it's very interesting when a new game comes along, especially when they're indie made, because it's shown that online competitive games are hard to make even for well-established big budget developers. So it's going to be a tough hill to climb as an indie developer trying to carve out a niche within this genre. Nevertheless, Scramble Knights is attempting to do that, so let's discuss the premise of the game. In Scramble Knights Royale, you compete against 32 players in a classic adventure battle royale. The goal is to be the last knight standing at the end of the game and win over the favor of the princess. Pretty simple. However, Scramble Knights stands out by combining questing and deep exploration with strategic PvP combat for a truly unique experience. During the playtest, only the solo queue was offered. However, there were options shown for a duos queue and even a triples queue. I do know the duos queue will be out later this year, so that's definitely something exciting to look forward to. Similar to the highly effective battle bus in Fortnite, Scramble Knights has you enter the map by jumping off a boat and sailing in on a turtle's back. You're then tasked with swiftly exploring the vast map as you focus on solving puzzles, conquering dungeons, finding loot, and fighting other players. Meanwhile, there's an enormous ring around the map that you could see is closing in on itself, which is obviously the Battle Royale part of the game. This ring closing in on itself has the exact same effect of a Fortnite, where the chaos gets really crazy at the end of the game thanks to the ring closing in on itself so narrowly. So let's talk about the good stuff. I enjoy the stylish turtle riding on the back entrance to the map. I think it's highly effective. Furthermore, I like that the map is very large. Even with 32 players all exploring it, it never feels like it's too small, especially at the early points of the game. And maybe the most notable point about the map is the fact that these procedurally generated maps are filled to the brim with stuff to interact with and explore, and I think that's vitally important when it comes to these Battle Royale style games, is they need to be fun before the action happens, because a lot of players are going to be bad. So how do bad players have a fun time? They need to be able to do some stuff, have some fun, feel like there are still things worthwhile doing before they just get eliminated, because a lot of people will just get eliminated and there's no fun to be had if you're getting eliminated immediately and you don't really feel like you even had a shot at competing. So I like that they kind of already have that addressed. And this content goes deep, whether it's puzzles, shops, breakable objects with hidden loot, dungeons, blacksmiths, hostile creatures, or even paying for more life at heart-shaped statues. There are loads of things to do without it feeling bloated at all, which is very, very nice. Let's move on to the art style. The developers really nailed the Zelda-like cartoonish aesthetic, as the game is charmingly cartoony with very vibrant environments. The vibrant environments are probably the best thing I could say about the overall art style. The player models are fluid, and the character customization options weren't the best, but they were adequate. They were serviceable. The map looks noticeably smooth and is very enjoyable to interact with, and the hostile creatures feel right at home within the world that is Scramble Knights, which is a nice touch. So all of these points come together to allow the art style to effectively immerse you into the world, which is what any effective art style does. So kudos to the dev team on that one. Let's move on to the content within the game. As stated previously, there are loads of things to focus on when you glide into the map. It's essential that you gather gems to purchase new weapons, armor, and accessories, or you have to discover them through exploration. You should also visit a blacksmith to upgrade your gear, which is only done by paying gems, which you can find everywhere on the map, so you do have to focus on breaking stuff in order to acquire those. You can also earn gems by completing quests, puzzles, and getting through dungeons, so I think the variety of ways to earn gems keeps things interesting since they play such a vital role in your overall ability to get more powerful. One vital thing to spend your gems on is additional health at the heart-shaped statues. Thankfully, they're identifiable on the minimap, so you really can't miss them, and other players will ensure that they have those extra hearts at the end of a match, so you don't want to be at an immense advantage when going up against them. While the weapon variety could use a few more options, I was still pretty impressed with the amount of different weapons that were offered during the playtest. There were vastly different swords, some heavy, some light, pokey sticks, bow and arrows, plungers, boomerangs, flutes that summon monsters, slingshots. There were even magic weapons, quite a few of those as well, and even more than that. So that's pretty good considering this is just the playtest. So that's honestly pretty awesome for that, for the dev team for being able to do that. Then when you consider the addition of armor and shield, you start to realize there's actually quite a bit of customization to your player when it comes to how you flesh out your build going into the late game. So I really like that, and it's actually a pretty important thing when it comes to a Battle Royale style game, that players need to feel like they can have their own creative approach to navigating a game and still having a chance at winning. So that's another nice, very nice underrated touch. I will say the long pokey stick felt just a little OP, so something worth keeping an eye on, but a very small critique of the overall weapon variety and the way that they're utilized. This one's going to be a big deal, so let's just get it out the way. It's the combat. An essential part of any PvP competitive game. A game can only really thrive as much as players are able to enjoy the combat or whatever form of interaction that they have with other players within a competitive game, and I do think there's room for improvement here. The one thing I think that's very worth noting is that I really didn't actually get to dive as heavily into the combat as I feel I would have liked to, so please take this one with just a little grain of salt, knowing that if I was able to immerse myself a little further, maybe this opinion would have changed a little. One thing, however, it doesn't really matter if I got more time with the game. I just feel like it's an undeniable fact that the game does a little bit of a poor job explaining the combat to you and really ensuring that you kind of got a firm grasp of how to navigate. The tutorial's a little bare bones and it really only describes the most basic concepts to you. I would say it even does a worse job of explaining the exploration side of the game than the combat. So unfortunately, this leaves you to kind of learn the combat on your own, especially when engaging with other players as opposed to just creatures, and that gets a little frustrating pretty quickly because the defense is pretty hard. That was the most notable thing for me with the combat, is defending yourself was a little difficult. The game does have parrying in it, and parrying an attack was really difficult in my opinion. It was not something I was doing that successfully, and even the dev team acknowledged this, that only 772 successful parries happened in a 3-day playtest, so there's a lot of room for growth there as far as in helping players be able to parry attacks correctly, because it just wasn't happening for most players, myself included. Then the lack of being able to parry is just made worse by the fact that on offense it's very easy to miss an attack and then leave yourself as a sitting duck as you're stuck in a combo animation, as there's numerous attacks that are like slash slash slash, so you're stuck in a combo animation, you're a sitting duck, and then your opponent is able to take very easy advantage of that. So that was another aspect I wasn't the biggest fan of just how easy it was to miss, and a big miss was a was really bad. You do not want to miss your attack because you're gonna get stuck in that animation, or you may get stuck in that animation and it's hard to get out of it. So a better tutorial / training mode would go a very long way. Thankfully the dev team did already acknowledge this in the exact same tweet where they acknowledged that parries just weren't happening. They said a possible training mode needed. That sounds like something that they'll probably heavily consider, and I'm feeling pretty confident they'll probably implement that into the game, whether it's a full training mode or just a better tutorial, so that players are actually able to defend themselves properly. Because once again, the combat's going to be the most important thing to keep the consumer, to keep the gamers coming back. So they definitely got to iron out any even small rough edges when it comes to combat. So I'm looking forward to see what they do there. Overall, I say all this to say that the combat is far from bad. There's lots of fun to be had, especially when you're able to explore a little bit further weapon variety than I was able to. However, there's just a little bit of fine tuning that can be done when it comes to the combat to just make it feel a little bit more fluid, and then definitely explaining things better to the players so that they're able to do those things like parrying would go a very long way. So this is a big one, and it'll be interesting to see what the dev team does here. Bugs, of course, you knew I was going to discuss bugs. It's a playtest. Bugs are expected. Nevertheless, you have to not only address these, but it is worth talking about as well. I found it a bit too easy to get stuck in random parts of the map, so that's definitely something I'm hoping the dev team takes a look at. A big culprit as to why I was getting stuck in certain parts of the map is the perspective. I found that objects weren't see-through even when they were impeding your vision. I had a bridge in my way at a point and certain other objects as well, and I couldn't see through them, so it made it really hard to know where my character was, even with like a little thing above his head. So unfortunately, I think that's something that they'll definitely want to take a further look at, is making sure objects are see-through, as that's usually what games do in this scenario. And once again, it'd go a long way towards improving the overall navigation and just feel of your perspective when it comes to this kind of top-down view that you have. Just like Zelda games, you want to make sure that objects aren't impeding your ability to see your characters. That's another pretty frustrating one that I experienced quite a bit during my time with the playtest. The most notable bug, however, and it trumps the other two actually by quite the large margin, was the load screens. My girlfriend's computer was struggling going through load screens. My computer was struggling going through load screens. They were long even when they didn't glitch or freeze, but it was very often that they just glitched out or froze. And that's obviously another really frustrating one when you're just trying to hop into another game or just exit a game and you're just having these insane load screens that are causing all kinds of issues. So I don't know what's going on there, whether it's just the loading, because it was even happening when we were leaving the map. I could see it a little bit more when you're trying to enter the map and all the graphics, all the players and all that going on. Once again, it's also a play test, so they haven't had 5,000 people playing out once before, and they did for this play test. So understandably so, the load screens caused some issues, but it was really bad in my opinion as far as how crazy those load screens were getting. So that'll probably be my biggest critique of the overall playtest. Actually, it's just gotta get the load screens figured out, because just too much RAM or computing power is being used to load in and out of games, and it creates a little bit of a sour experience when you're just trying to get it into another game. Then let's discuss one of the bigger aspects of the game, is the Battle Royale side of the game. Yes, there's all these questing and puzzles and all that going on, but does that mesh well with the Battle Royale side of the game? That's always what any developer is trying to accomplish when you make a Battle Royale game, is you want whatever your game's mechanics are to mesh well with the Battle Royale style of a game, eventually having this big final showdown with a small available safe zone that players are trying their best to navigate around. And I do feel like some games have unfortunately faltered at this point, where they have a fun game, but the Battle Royale side feels a little forced. And thankfully that's not the case at all in Scramble Knights Royale. I feel like the two concepts do work well together. However, just like other things I've kind of mentioned, there are some rough edges that can kind of be buffed out, so I'm hoping this is something that the dev team does consider doing. First off, the exploration in the game is really deep. You can find yourself in crazy underground tunnels, you could find yourself just deep within a cave, really having a great time exploring, and then out of nowhere, the map is closing in on itself, and you are in the worst position to recover from that. I felt like at times the exploration was at odds with the Battle Royale aspect of the game. The exploration is encouraging you to get so deep into doing something. The puzzles are encouraging you to get deep into accomplishing the puzzle, and then out of nowhere the map's closing in on itself, and you are now in a terrible position that you have to run super fast and get out of. You could be right at the end of a puzzle, and you probably got to get out of there because of how much damage being outside of the safe zone starts to do to you. So I just feel like sometimes those two were a little at odds, and I'm not actually sure. I don't have a great suggestion on how they can fix this one. So hopefully it's something they just take a really detailed look at and figure out what can kind of be done to just make that feel a little bit better, where your exploration doesn't feel at odds with the Battle Royale mechanic. Maybe that's what they want. They want you to feel like you have to be able to do it so quick and fast or get out of there. So that may be just a get good thing where I need to get good, my girlfriend needs to get a little better, but we both kind of felt this way, and I just don't think it's the best experience when you first hop into the game. It doesn't feel great, and I would say quests are also affected by this as well. Getting really deeply into maybe a more detailed quest, just kind of, you could just easily lose track of your map awareness and then end up in a bad spot. Could just be a case of get better, do it faster. But once again, as a new player, you want to feel like it's not too difficult to hold your own a little, and that balance was a little hard to strike on questing and completing puzzles to get the rare items that are within there, or get a lot of gems for completing those things. And unfortunately then you find yourself unsafe, not within the safe zone. So I found all the things you need to focus on at once very hard to focus on all at the same times because they felt a little at odds with one another. Alright, I feel like I discussed everything that's worth discussing. There is even finer details to go over, however the main points were said, and that's all I really wanted to cover within this video, so let's get to a prediction. So after really thinking about my time playing Scramble Knights Royale, I believe due to the game already having such a solid foundation, good weapon variety, vibrant, fun to navigate map, and just a really good concept as far as questing, puzzles, and dungeons, incorporating those into the Battle Royale genre does give it a very unique, fun feel. And I feel like there is a population of gamers who don't really want to play these less cozy feeling battle royales like Fortnite. It gets really intense, it gets really skill intensive, and also like let's say Warzone and Call of Duty. There's a set of gamers who don't really want to play those games, and I feel like they'd feel much more at home with something that gives more of a Zelda/swordy more feel. It'll still be very skillful at the high level, but I feel like it does, just purely based on aesthetic and feel, tap into a little bit of a different demographic than what these typical battle royales have really tapped into, even ones that have been unsuccessful. I don't feel like a lot of them have tried to go for something that feels that similar to what Scramble Knights Royale is doing, which is a huge plus for them. Your game needs to be unique to carve out a niche in any genre, but especially the competitive gaming genre. Essential that your game feels unique and not like other games in order to actually survive. So I feel the game can carve out a niche within the Battle Royale genre. However, it'll be heavily dependent on how much the dev team locks in and doesn't rush the process. That last point is super key. If you rush the process, there's no way you'll be able to compete with the likes of Fortnite, Warzone, and other games that have established themselves within the Battle Royale genre. It's just too hard. Their budgets are way too enormous compared to yours. It won't work. So they will have to lock in, make the game the best product they can, and take their time doing so it can be as complete of a game as possible when it does officially release. A big thing I think can also help with that though is the release of the duos and trios queue. I actually have pretty high hopes for the game with those, as I felt in solo queue I was having a fun time, but if I was able to play alongside my girlfriend and compete together, have one of us looking out for other players, and also kind of mesh the roles a little bit more with one's questing, one's exploring, I feel like there's a lot of promise with that style in particular. So I really do want to see what this game looks like in duos queue compared to solo. It feels like duos probably is much better than solo queue. So that's something to definitely look forward to, which once again is coming out later this year. So I might do an update video on this game based on how I feel once I experience the duos queue, because I think that's a key component of what this game is offering. And I'll just repeat a previous point again, that I feel like this game has great potential in duos and trios queue, as with all the tasks you're trying to focus on, it just sounds perfect for a more team-centric style of approach to the game rather than the solo queue. So I'm really looking forward to later this year when that releases. You know you'll get an update from me, so make sure that you guys are locked in, subscribed, and on this channel so you don't miss out on that. I appreciate you guys' time watching, and I want to then ask the question to you. Will you be wishlisting the game? Will you participate in their next playtest whenever that does arrive? And will you be playing when it officially releases later this year as well? That's all stuff I would love to know. Leave all those thoughts and more in the comment section below. Anything you want to add on this topic, please understand how much I love hearing from you guys, so don't hesitate to just leave your thoughts on Scramble Knights and just Battle Royales as a whole. And as always, thank you so much for watching. Thanks for your support, especially if you made it this far. You guys are the best. I can't wait to bring you guys more similar content. I'll see you guys in the next video. That's it for me. Peace out.